Luke Abagi, Head of Product, Mary Technology. Thanks for joining us on People in Legal.
Pleasure to be here, Tim. Thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. For everybody who doesn't know me, my name is Tim Kenney. When I'm not doing People in Legal podcasts, I have my own fractional consulting business called 𝗁𝗁𝗀, and I help legal technology companies make money. Luke, so you've had a very, very busy week, haven't you?
Very busy week, Tim. We have flown into New York with the mission to move here, have boots on the ground, and seen ourselves across two conferences, and now I'm going off to another one next week to clock. Sorry, this week. So yeah, it's been busy.
You're so busy you don't even know what week it is right now.
No, that's right.
So tell us a little bit of the background of Mary Technology. I know that in Australia, a lot of people know who you are. You're actually really successful already, but give us a little background on Mary Technology.
Yeah. So Mary Technology has been around for about 3 years. We originally founded by it's four co-founders, Daniel Lord Doyle, 𝗁𝗵𝘁, Harry Warworth, and myself, and two founding engineers, Lawrence Key and Jesus. He essentially came to the industry with the mission to turn client consultations ultimately into things like file meeting notes and file notes and whatnot. But in of doing that, did we discover that ultimately to enable litigation with AI efficiencies, it's really all about the facts. And we spent almost our 2 years really concentrating on extracting and legally ready facts from all the evidential documents and to basically build a purpose-built tool for dispute resolution and litigation. We call ourselves a fact management system, and we're now servicing over 2,000 attorneys globally. We've got nearly 150 firms, many of the largest law firms in Australia. And after the very high success that we've had there, and ultimately the results that we're seeing in as focusing on the problem, that problem, just for clarity, is what we call fact chaos. Everything's hidden in the documents. But yes, after that success, we're now driving the tool through through the US and really supporting all the law firms, big and small, here. So it's a
That's
very exciting
amazing. So you're
venture.
new to North America, but you're not new. This is an established solution already.
That's right. That's right. We've proven out the essentially the tool's effectiveness in solving that problem, fact chaos, and its ability to actually produce high value outcomes, better outcomes, and ultimately that's why we're here now. So yeah, the tool's been around for a long time, and seeing some very great results.
That's great. Let's rewind it a little bit. So Mary Technologies, that's a very unusual name. How'd you come up with that?
Yeah. So one of the other founders, Rowan, his auntie is a barrister, which is essentially a trial attorney, very senior one. Her name's Mary, and she's renowned to be ruthlessly efficient. We like to say that every law firm needs a Mary, and that's why we call it Mary.
And your family's not offended that it's not named after anybody in your family, Luke?
Not at all. If you met Mary, if you know Mary, you'd be delighted to have named a product after us. So no, we're very proud. Yeah.
That's fantastic. All right, so Luke, you talked about fact chaos. Can you break that down a little bit for us? Because there's a lot of AI tools out there. Honestly, it's my job to know about them, and I get confused. There's just a lot of noise out there. How is Mary Technology different, and specifically, what are the solution? What are the problems that you're solving that other AI products are not solving?
Yeah. So I suppose two things there is what's the problem that we're solving, and then second, how are we solving it? I'll talk to the problem first. So with the problem, fact chaos, essentially in litigation, lawyers and legal teams need to navigate very large corpus of documents, emails, Excel files, PDFs, images, so the list goes on. And often the facts that are ultimately relevant to the case are hidden amongst all that noise. These documents as well, they're entirely unorganized, they're out of date, and so on and so forth. So legal teams got to go through a process of organizing all of that, extracting the relevant facts, and from the relevant facts, building their arguments and their strategies, and so on and so forth. So it's ultimately that's where we exist, anywhere between sort of client document receiving those documents to actually the development of strategy, whereby we really distill and help them circumnavigate those the large corpus of documents to surface those facts that ultimately they can be used in downstream tasks. And the way that we do that as well is we've built a tool whereby it actually extracts what I like to call the atomic level of the case document. So if you imagine you were to process any, say this bottle, you had to process that through the system, we would break it down to its tiniest little atoms, which, and what that is the facts, the people, places, locations, and so on and so forth. And we would map the relationships between those things and basically create a data set where of the facts that enables downstream AI tools to circumnavigate that data in a very complete and accurate way, which is ultimately critical for litigation because it's always about the nuanced facts. So low fidelity details. And that can often get lost in generalist tools. So the way that we manage our data really is the reason why we are a purpose-built tool for litigation. The second element here as well is when you're an AI system, when it goes off and produces an artifact ultimately for a lawyer, traditional tools make a lot of judgment calls. They ultimately get to a point where they produce something and there's an element where you need to trust it, or as a lawyer, you need to trust it. We have embedded what we call a verification layer. It's a suite of tools that helps lawyers build confidence in what we produce. On the foundation, on the basis, or the lowest level, that means is everything that we produce is tied back to the actual source document itself. And so you can see exactly where it sits on the page.
It's helping with the problem that we hear about again and again and again right now, right? Is the hallucinations. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, the cognitive surrender, where the lawyers are just trusting AI, right? And it's, oh, this must be right. Oh, well, this seems right, and then getting in big trouble for it. So tell us a little bit
Yeah.
more about how you're solving that problem, Luke.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, cognitive surrender, it's an interesting term. It's actually came from a paper we read from these two guys named 𝗁 and 𝗁𝗍. And basically, they realized it was a study done on what happens to daily thought ultimately when you're using AI for most things. And what they found is that people are typically trusting confident AI answers 80% of the time without actually verifying it. And that's the phenomenon of cognitive surrender. And they define it as, and I've got a little quote here, so I want to read this because don't want to do them an injustice, but they call it a cognitive surrender is an uncritical abdication of reasoning itself. Obviously, in law, that is mission. That's a very critical.
That's why you hire a lawyer, right? Because you want to be able to trust their answers. Yeah,
That's
you
exactly
think
right.
they've got it right. Yeah.
That's exactly right. This is exactly right. And so we at Mary try to introduce this thing which they call productive friction. And productive friction really is at what points throughout the life cycle or throughout the workflow and actually producing an artifact that you can use with AI, at what points in the production of that output can we input an element of friction to essentially stimulate that critical thinking? So in Mary, I like to say our mission ultimately is to remove the administrative administration in doing law without removing the judgment. So that might be in practical sort of a practical example. Quite recently, we built a tool called the custom chronology tool. But ultimately, what it does is first and foremost tries to fundamentally understand what is it that you're after, what's the point of perspective that you're looking to see, and then it produces a plan. So the first thing is understand your goal, and then it will go off and produce a plan for you. It'll outline, here's the typical issues that we're going to be focusing on. Here are the key entities. Here are some of those really key documents. Some of the points of perspective on the location, for example, and so on and so forth. And it tries to clarify that with the attorney themselves. And the attorney can adjust that plan as they see fit, or what we like to call we provide them the opportunity to always course correct. And then upon approving that, we will then go off and produce the output. So they know exactly what goes in to actually building the artifact. But once the artifact is actually produced, they then have the ability to actually then go backwards again and understand how did we get here. And what that looks like is it's almost like a post-mortem audit. They can look at all the documents the system looked at and the rationale why it included it, as well as look at what the system didn't include. We call that the negative space. Providing visibility into the negative space is absolutely critical.
That's a big difference maker for you, right? Because litigation teams have had to do this forever, right? But you're eliminating a lot of the grunt work that had to be human eyes going through this stuff, right? And then then also not only what's there, what are we doing with it, but hey, what's not there, correct?
What's not there. That's
Yeah.
right, absolutely. In effect, that really emulates what a discovery team does now. You know, as a partner, you have your discovery team that goes off and produces the relevant document sets, but also the irrelevant document sets. And a partner is ultimately the one that understands the relevance of a key piece of information because they've seen how it gets used in court. And that experience often is, you know, it's not, it's typically not an experience of someone that's doing the discovery and clerical process. And so, as a consequence, the way that a legal team combats that or a partner combats that is they go through the irrelevant document set and spot check it, you know, 1 in 6 or 1 in 10. And in Mary, we're designing those systems directly into what the AI does, you know, and so we'll produce that irrelevant document set for you to go through and actually
So,
spot check.
so you're not replacing people. You're just getting the litigation team what they need and maybe what they didn't even know about faster and better.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so, I mean, it's interesting what you just said there as well, because often people come to these tools with the intention to get the efficiency gains, you know? Often are we saying one of the efficiency gains on our end, we're seeing 50 to 90% efficiency gain, but you know, in complex litigation, the benefits of these tools is actually far more important than that. It's
Mhm.
actually oversight, it's case oversights, the ability to get to the smoking guns or the needle in the haystack information far quicker than you did before. But so it's yeah. Besides the speed, it's that second pair of eyes element that's really benefiting legal teams.
That's great. And even more than that, right? You're not replacing people again. You're just making them better because
That's right.
ultimately it's the judgment. So, and what else do you do? You know, hallucinations are a huge thing. What
Yeah.
else is Mary Technology doing so you don't have to worry about those hallucinations?
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky enough being a what we call fact management system is we're entirely orientated around the facts and the facts as found inside the documents. And I mean, that's different to other tools that are sort of working in sort of case law legislation. It's a lot more open world knowledge sets, knowledge sets. So for us, our system only ever looks at the documents that you upload and it only ever pulls the information from those documents and ties everything back to anything that we produce back to the document.
So you've got a citation for everything.
Citation for everything. But there is an element of what we call inference. So if the system knows that there should be, for example, a date tied to this event and it can't find one, it's able to emulate what an attorney does now. They will try to actually place that event in the right sequence because ultimately what their goal is to understand the order of events so that they can ultimately identify causation, for example. And so what our system does is it places that fact, an event, against the entire corpus of facts and events and documents and infers what that date will be. But anytime that we infer something, we will highlight it for review. We
Again,
al-
helping with that. So there isn't that cognitive surrender, right? It's
that's
like
right.
you've highlighted it. This could be, maybe not. Check it.
That's exactly right. And just to yeah, really lean into that sort of, you know, the productive friction there is we always provide the rationales to any decisions that the system makes. So we call that proactive rationalization, whereby we capture the rationalization at the point in which a system's made a decision, which is different to other generalist tools. Because if you were to ask the question, why did you do that? It does post hoc rationalization. The problem with that is every time you ask the system, why did you do that to the same thing, it'll come up with a different
'Cause
rationale.
it's trying to please you, right? And that's the problem with AI.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Really interesting. That's fantastic. Alright, so a little bit more about the company. So you recently got a huge round of funding, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So, of course, as we sort of alluding to earlier, the products is solving this problem of fact chaos across many of the very large law firms and even the small law firms in Australia. And on the back of that, we raised a $7 million a round led by Oath Ventures and also supported by our current investors, Empress Capital and Sydney Angels for the purposes of now expanding into the United States.
New York office, and you're gonna have San Francisco presence also? Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, actually, we have a San Francisco office currently, and we're now building and opening the New York office, which is that the New York office is led by myself and Harry and one of the other co-founders, and our CCO Emily Lonsdale is opening the San Francisco office.
Great, but you haven't abandoned Australia and the rest of the world, right?
Absolutely not. No. So our team is predominantly located in Australia, but we are servicing Europe. We're in a partnership, for example, with the 𝗁𝗁𝘁, which I believe to be the third largest law firm now. And we're part of a program called Fuse. So we're servicing UK, starting there and moving throughout Europe. Um,
Fantastic. So
but
right now, what are the point solutions? What type of practice areas have you focused on, and what are you moving into?
Yeah, so we have three dominant practice areas. Really, the platform excels wherever there's complex litigation or high volume litigation. So the first being commercial litigation, but anything really around that general litigation space, so bankruptcy, M&As and so on and so forth. Then the second being personal injury. We do a lot of high volume personal injury work in Australia and insurance work. Here in the United States, we're also servicing a lot of, in particular, in terms of the personal injury, medical malpractice and abuse, where really typically those documents are more abundant, and the nature of the sort of complexity of the facts and the patterns between facts is also more complex. And then the third practice area is family law. So family law is a relatively underserved market here, and so we provide very favorable billing models for family lawyers to take on a tool like ours and handle the large volumes that they're typically seeing.
Yeah, and regarding the volumes, you mentioned before you're working within a contained set of information, but that doesn't mean just documents, correct?
So how do you mean, Tim?
Like, if I had a note that it was scribbled on a piece of paper and it
Yeah,
was scanned in someplace. So we're just not talking about documents that have been
no,
the
that's right.
document management system, correct?
That's right. Source files. The source evidence comes in many forms. Obviously, documents being one, but yeah, handwritten notes, images, video, audio. At this time, we only handle documents. We do handle images. We handle handwritten notes. So a lot of what we built the system on was actually doctors' handwriting, and I call doctors' handwriting what I like to call it the modern day Mission Impossible. And the system does far better than I or any human could in actually deciphering a lot of that material. So yes, and what we're doing next is the video and audio, and that's really focused on servicing the depositions and the video formats that come from that.
Wow, so really comprehensive.
Extremely comprehensive. Yeah, we're looking to cover the entire corpus of different file formats that any law firm is handling.
That's fantastic. So I imagine you've got a lot of big firms knocking on your door with big litigation teams. But what about let's say that I've got a, I don't know, small personal injury firm. Is Married for Me, or is it you guys out of reach?
Yeah, so one of our missions is ultimately democratizing the legal AI, and servicing the big end of town and small end of town as much as we're servicing the big end of town. And in fact, you're somewhat level in the playing field there. One of the things that we're doing to service that is we've built a self-serve motion into the platform. So anyone can now come in, sign themselves up, and get started straight away without any human contact. So we're seeing that's where a lot of the uptake is here in the United States, is servicing a lot of the small law firms through that self-serve portal. So yeah, that's sort of what we're doing there.
And the self-serve is working. So your system is capable enough of providing the right information support without needing
Yeah,
a big support line.
Yeah, that's right. I think one of the things we really do pride ourselves on at Mary Technology is the user experience. And we really do focus on building essentially a workflow that doesn't need you to be trained on. So ultimately, when you come into the platform, it's a very easy experience to go through the process of generating a case and then uploading your files and actually seeing the value on the other end. And then on the big end of town, we still provide services to them in terms of training, one-on-one trainings and group trainings. We're also very, very willing and happy also to provide the same service to anyone that's self-signing up. So we have a little chat function in the corner of the screen. If anyone was to ever ask, how do I do X, Y, or Z, would immediately be on a call within 5-10 minutes if they needed that support.
That's amazing. Luke, looks like you're off to a great start in North America. Congratulations and welcome. And thanks for being on People Legal. Is there anything else you want to mention out to anybody that we haven't covered so far?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I would say if you are a law firm or an in-house legal team as well, as we're seeing a lot of uptake there, that's typically dealing with high volumes of documents, and you're either doing that manually or you're doing it with AI tools and it's, I suppose, falling short. I would absolutely love to take the opportunity to talk to you. The other person I absolutely love the opportunity to talk to and reach out is those who are relatively untrusting with AI tools. One, it's something that we entirely orientate ourselves around is solving the trust issue for AI litigation. And on the other hand, it's something that we really want to learn. So you really help us understand, well, where are the gaps in better building the tool to actually facilitate that trust. And so please reach out. We'd love to have these conversations.
Fantastic. It's 𝗁𝗁technology.com is your website.
𝗁𝗁technology.com.
Fantastic. Luke, thanks for joining us today and best of luck.
Thank you, Tim. Good talking to you.